Well, thank you for joining me here on this Tuesday evening. Destructive, dangerous Hurricane Melissa continues to tear across the Caribbean. We had one of our strongest storms on record in the Atlantic Basin making landfall in Jamaica this afternoon as a high-end Category 5. That storm now emerging north of Jamaica and setting shape to make another landfall in Cuba during the overnight hours as a Category 4 hurricane. We're going to track what is next here for the track of Hurricane Melissa through Cuba and then the Bahamas and then potentially Bermuda, which is now under hurricane watch, as well as talk about the weather to come here in Jamaica in this video. Thank you for joining me so much. I hope everybody is safe, and my thoughts and prayers are with everybody who's been impacted by this storm, not just in Jamaica, but in other areas of the Caribbean as well. It has been a memorable one, and unfortunately, we're not finished yet as the storm continues to produce a wide area of destruction. Here's a look at the current satellite, just showing you the incredible fury of the storm. Winds were measured at 185 miles per hour as the storm was still strengthening right up to landfall very late in the morning, early in the afternoon today. You can see the lightning strikes surrounding the eye as it made its way inland. In fact, hurricane hunters flying in were struggling with it. We even had a flight that had to turn around after making an impact in the middle. It actually just could not get out of the storm. I can't even imagine how dangerous that flight was, but I'm hearing some horror stories. But now the storm, after spending about 4 hours crossing the western portion of the island of Jamaica, is set to go back over very warm water. And it will not be as strong this go around, but it will still be a very powerful storm as it now heads towards the south coast of Cuba, with landfall expected during the very late night hours. And of course, that is a dangerous factor as well, as those on the south coast of Cuba will be getting hit before it gets light out, and many may be asleep during that time. So here's the latest update from the National Hurricane Center. Let me back that up. We do have winds down to 145 miles per hour, and the storm is beginning to pick up some forward speed, now moving north-northeast at 8 miles per hour. As of 5 o'clock Eastern, 4 o'clock Cuban and Jamaican time, it's located at 18.5 degrees north and 77.7 degrees west. The minimum central pressure has risen up to 921 millibars, which for most normal storms would be about as strong as it gets, but this storm has been just an incredible one here, and still very dangerous conditions in Jamaica. Now it's not the time to venture back out, although I imagine if you're in Jamaica right now, unless you're on the eastern part of the island, it's probably you're probably not able to get this video at this time. But if you're watching later on, I obviously wish you the best. So we continue to have damaging winds. We have catastrophic flooding continuing on the island, especially around the mountains, and storm surge on the backside hitting places like Montego Bay from the north as the storm leaves to your east at this time. Some changes in the watches and warnings. We now have a hurricane watch for the island of Bermuda. That will likely be something that gets upgraded to a hurricane warning, although there is a shift in the track somewhat to the west. We're going to talk about that in the video here as well. We do still have a hurricane warning for all of Jamaica that will continue probably through the night. The Cuban provinces of Granma, Santiago de Cuba, Guantanamo, Holguin, and Las Tunas. We have southeastern and central Bahamas remaining under a hurricane warning. And we have a hurricane watch, as I'd mentioned, for Bermuda. And we still have a tropical storm warning now on day 5 for all of Haiti, as well as the Cuban province of Camagüey, which is to the west of the ones I just mentioned, and for the Turks and Caicos Islands as well. So certainly we're going to be in for a lot of folks being impacted by this storm. Look at a longer loop of the storm from its life as a major hurricane, Category 4 on Sunday to Category 5 late Sunday night, Monday morning. And you can see how it actually grew in size. The eye contracted, then got bigger, and the storm did what most storms don't typically do. It actually continued to strengthen all the way up to landfall. Typically, a storm over hot water would find a way to go through an eye wall replacement, or some wind shear or some dry air would get in, and we would see somewhat of a weakening phase. Category 5 hurricanes don't typically last that long, that strong for that long, but this year's been a little bit different. And the lack of hurricane activity has led to hotter than average water temperatures in the Caribbean. And unfortunately, we're paying the price for that now this late in the season. And Jamaica, unfortunately, getting the brunt of this system as the hurricane made its approach and landfall over the far eastern portion of Westmoreland Parish. Also, of course, We saw that storm track through a good chunk of St. Elizabeth and St. James and surrounding parishes as well. And now you can see, although this last portion of the loop, you can see the eye is now filled in somewhat. It is still very intense. Just because clouds now cover it doesn't mean it's not an intense eye. But we do have incredible amounts of rain and wind still on all sides here, especially in the mountains to the east of the center. We are likely seeing wind gusts still over 180 to 190 miles per hour, at least for the next couple of hours. But our attention is going to focus on what's next, and that is that the storm will be moving back over water and will spend a fair amount of time over these warm waters. It may take a little while to try to get some organization back to it, as it's just spent some time over land, but there is warm water here. So I would not rule out the fact that maybe this storm could try to gain a little bit more steam as it comes on approach to the southern portion of Cuba. Now, the one thing that we are going to have to watch here is that there's a very high mountain range on the south coast of Cuba that could disrupt the circulation as it gets closer to landfall. That is I believe, the Sierra Maestra, and we do have mountains there that are as high as 6,500 feet. So as the storm gets a little bit closer to that area, it will run into a place where dry air and downsloping flow will probably disrupt it a little bit. If the storm finds a way to come farther east, it's going to hit a major metropolitan area, Santiago de Cuba. And I don't think it's likely to come all the way over to Guantanamo, but that would be the area where we would probably have the strongest amount of storm surge. It would have to make a severe right turn, though, for that to happen. The reason why is that you can see the water actually funnels inward, and a strong flow out of the south would actually push that water up the bay even more. But nonetheless, this is going to be a destructive storm no matter where it goes. It is going to spend a lot more time over Cuba, so I would expect it would weaken more, although it is going to be moving at a faster rate during the day on Wednesday. So we're going to talk a bit more about that track of the storm. We do have another plane going down into the storm. We didn't have any flights this afternoon. There is one that left a little while ago. It should start to make its way into the storm at about 7 o'clock Eastern time. There'll be new data. I will share that with you on my community page. If you haven't subscribed, it doesn't cost you anything to do that, but you'll get that update from me as I get that data. And it's going to give us an idea of if what the winds look like, if the storm has gotten bigger or not, and what the pressure inside looks like. Earlier flights, right before landfall, the last pressure fix we got was 893 millibars, basically putting us in a tie for the third lowest pressure on record in the Atlantic Basin, tied with the hurricane from the Labor Day storm that hit the upper Keys of Florida in 1935. We did not have aircraft measure that. That was actually measured on land. Then you have Hurricane Gilbert after it hit Jamaica and strengthened to a Category 5 in 1988. And the strongest is Wilma from 2005, which was west of Jamaica over the Northwest Caribbean back in October of 2005. During that incredible flight, we did get drop zone data that actually measured some incredibly strong winds not far off of the ground. In fact, 500 feet above the sea level, winds were measured at over 235 miles per hour, maybe up to 240 miles per hour. So the concern, of course, and we aren't going to know for days because of communication challenges, is that some of these winds could have held together when they hit the islands of Jamaica just inland. Quite possible that wind gusts there were well over 200 miles per hour, as the sustained winds near the ocean front were around 185 miles per hour. So this is about as strong as you're ever going to see out of a drop zone that was dropped into the, I believe, the northwestern eye wall of the storm right as it reached its peak intensity or right before landfall. It's very possible the storm could have been a little bit stronger after this was taken. We won't know for sure because there was about an hour between the last flight leaving the eye and the storm making landfall, but let's just assume it was pretty much about the same. An interesting thing that did happen during the day today, the storm did make a little bit of a left wobble. And that kept it from making a direct hit on, I believe, Treasure Beach. It came up a little bit more to the up from, I believe it was up from Black River, and actually made a direct landfall up the coast just a little bit, just into Westmoreland Parish. And part of that jump was due to the fact that there are mountains in here, and the storm actually interacted a little bit with the mountains. The frictional forces actually pulled the center west a little bit and kind of danced around them and then pulled it back around. So it looked like the storm was going to actually come out near Montego Bay for a while. It did jump back to the east and now is exiting over St. James Parish and Trelawney Parish right near that line. But it is expected to resume I would expect a more northeasterly path. Now, there'll probably be a few more wobbles left and right, I would imagine. I don't think that matters too much in the grand scheme of things, but it could matter in the longer run as to where this storm eventually makes landfall. And you can see because of the westward dance that it did do this afternoon, the track has been pushed westward somewhat away from Santiago de Cuba and certainly away from Guantanamo and more towards these higher peaks down here that I'd mentioned in Cuba that are across. I'm trying to remember the name of the province. It may still be the Santiago province, but maybe actually just to the west. And as this center comes over the mountains, it will weaken. The storm will probably be down to a category 3 and maybe even a high end category 2 when it leaves the Cuban coast. But it does bring the strongest winds very close to Alwyn as it comes off to the north. I apologize. I cannot speak the Cuban dialect of English. It's unless I was living there, I've never been immersed. I've taken years of Spanish, but I just don't understand it. So I apologize for that. But unfortunately, that is a higher population area that could get hit by the eye wall here. It's still going to be a powerful storm. As the storm continues on, the next area to watch will be the central and southeastern Bahamas. We've been talking about it for a while. The next area likely to get the strongest winds would be Crooked Island. There's a possibility there could still be a shift towards Long Island. We could also see the storm come over very close to San Salvador, but there could still be a shift in either direction here. So we still have the hurricane warning extending up a little bit closer to Nassau, but not quite into the northwest Bahamas and all the way down to Great and Little Anagua. The Turks and Caicos Islands and the western portion of Haiti remain under a tropical storm warning. And the reason why is that as the storm comes up more to the northeast, it is expected that it is going to begin to grow in size. Right now, a relatively compact category 4 or 5 hurricane. The tropical storm force winds are only a couple hundred miles from the center at this point. The hurricane force winds are only about 40 miles from the center. So relatively small for such a big storm. But as the storm begins to gain latitude, it is going to get bigger. There'll be eye wall replacements. There'll be some wind shear. There will be cooler water that will allow the storm to begin to expand. Beyond that, we are going to see the storm pass through the Bahamas in the afternoon tomorrow and will weaken down probably to a higher end category 2 or low end category 3. The difference between 105 and 115 is not very big, but we are expecting a major hurricane hit on the Bahamas, and then it should lower somewhat down to category 2. And now we have a hurricane watch for Bermuda, but the latest models have shifted the track a little bit more to the left in response to an incoming storm in the eastern United States. And that could pull the strongest winds a little bit to the left of the island. We're going to have to wait and see how that plays out, but it will come during the night, Thursday night, and end in the morning on Friday. However, the wind forecast has come up a little bit to having winds around 100 miles per hour Friday. Down the road, we are expecting this system to lose most of its tropical characteristics before it approaches eastern Canada. There are some models that pull this closer to the Avalon Peninsula, but there are also as many that pull it away. It'll be a close call, but we could have some fringe impacts across portions of Newfoundland. Taking a look at the wind swath, you can see, and this has not been updated, at least on my site yet, but a good portion of western Jamaica had hurricane force winds. Everyone else in Jamaica had tropical storm force winds. If it had not done that dance, we could have seen hurricane force winds getting all the way over towards Kingston and St. Catharines. So again, I'm not going to say we're fortunate anywhere in here, but some folks got it a lot worse. And we'll leave it at that. For Cuba, it is going to, again, be a nail biter for Santiago, but I do think west of you, we could see destructive amounts of hurricane force winds. And this could still shift to the east a little bit, as that is very possible at this time. Look at rainfall forecasts. We've already had a lot of rain, so this is on top of what's already fallen, but 8 to 16 inches of rain expected across the mountainous areas of southern Cuba. That will cause destructive flooding into these metropolitan areas. We're going to have storm surge that's quite high. We will still have flooding across Jamaica. The rain is not going to just finish up right away, even though the center is now emerging. It's going to be staying wet into the night tonight, maybe first thing tomorrow. And unfortunately, in Hispaniola, we still have a few more inches of rain coming, especially around the mountains. There's still a lot of tropical moisture coming in on the eastern side of our storm. It's going to take us a couple more days before that can let up some, and a little bit more misery, unfortunately, for those areas. Farther north, this storm is going to be speeding up. I don't think we're going to see widespread flooding in the Bahamas, but we could have some heavy rainfall on top of the wind damage that is expected. Here's a look at our spaghetti plots. These are the latest tropical models, pretty well in tune here. These two, by the way, are climatology, so we ignore them. Across Jamaica, eastern Cuba, across the southeast Bahamas. I'm going to circle Bermuda. You can't see it on this map, unfortunately, but it's right about here. Whoops, let me find it for you here. There we go, right about here. So it is on the eastern envelope at this time. And then this is the Avalon Peninsula. And we do have a couple of models that are still flirting with a landfall on the Avalon Peninsula of Newfoundland. But a good majority are now pushing it away to the east before any sort of landfall. At that point, it's not going to look like a hurricane. It's going to look like a powerful non-tropical system. Here's a look at the Google DeepMind. It has a few more members than the others, still showing an impact, but we're probably talking about a 10 to 15% chance at this time. The Google DeepMind does not have a single member going over Bermuda anymore. Here you can see Bermuda barely, but it does have some that are very close. But the mean of all the ensembles has shifted west by about 50 to 100 miles. I'm not saying that that certainly takes you out of the threat here in Jamaica, but that is an encouraging trend for the moment. Here's a look at the atmosphere surrounding the system, and you see so much moisture coming out of the Caribbean and then so much dry air on the backside. Eventually, that dry air does start getting entrained into the southern portion of the system, and the moisture from it gets tugged into the trough that will be moving into the eastern United States here on Thursday. So an interesting setup here, but we may actually be dealing with a little bit of severe weather Wednesday night in eastern North Carolina and southeastern Virginia. Anytime you got a strong front, strong wind fields like this, and you have a tropical connection, something to watch in this area. Has nothing to do with a hurricane, but just something to keep an eye on. If you pull up the sounding, there is some wind shear for sure, and there's instability, but it is going to be coming during the overnight hours. So just something that we have to keep an eye on at this point. But down the road, you're going to see weakening with this storm. The trough does try to pull the system west of Bermuda temporarily, but then eventually it is going to get picked up and kicked away at the last minute here. So no East Coast direct hit at this time is the expectation. Here's a look at the upper levels of our system. And you can see just ideal conditions right now with outflow in all directions. You just see a great upper level environment, and that's why our storm got to be so intense. You add to that the extreme amount of hot water that's in place surrounding Jamaica. We are going to lose that environment as this system does come up towards Cuba. And then in particular, as it gets to the Bahamas, you could see all of these brighter colors. That indicates fast winds aloft. And that wind shear is going to allow our storm to grow, but it is also going to allow our storm to weaken. Couple that with much cooler water here that's been turned up by multiple storms that have tracked east of the Bahamas and nearer to the west of Cuba. That has been the hotspot for storms this season, not in the Gulf, not in the Caribbean up until now, but in this portion of the western and central Atlantic. Well, those waters are cooler than average overall, and so we're not going to see any kind of rapid intensification. And this time of year, it's really difficult to get a storm even up in this area. But we do have a Category 4 hurricane that will eventually die as it comes northward. So you see the jet helps the system, but eventually shears it apart over time. Here's a look at what the HAVS model, the hurricane model that I would say has done a fairly decent job with our storm, is showing. And you can see the storm coming off of Jamaica now. It is still expected to move north-northeast. I do think this particular model is a little bit too far to the right, but we'll have to see. Of course, any wobble will make a difference. Santiago de Cuba is right about here and still in an area of very strong winds. If you take a look at the wind field down here, you can see that there's some incredibly strong winds in the lower parts of the atmosphere. So as this storm continues though over the mountains, it does speed up, but it is going to be a lot weaker by the time it enters the waters to the north of Cuba. And I guess technically that's the Atlantic Ocean at that point. Still a powerful storm and a growing storm. And you can see the wind field does grow. So that's why we've got more islands in the Bahamas that are under a hurricane warning than not at this time. But it is going to move through very quickly. And by the time we get to Wednesday night, conditions will gradually improve. By Thursday, it'll be much quieter. As we get to Thursday night, you can see Bermuda now more to the right of the track here. We do have strong winds that are not far from the island, though. We're going to have to keep an eye on it because there could still be a period of some strong winds. Now, for Bermudans, this is not going to be your first rodeo, so we're not going to get too stressed out about it. But if this does happen to shift back to the right by 50 to 100 miles, things could be a lot worse. So it's best to just be a little bit over prepared just to be safe at this time. The storm's going to move very quickly, and by Friday, things will calm down in Bermuda pretty quickly. And we're not expecting a direct hit on the Avalon Peninsula, but if this shifts back to the west, like the Canadian shows, we do need to at least be prepared for that just in case. Wind speeds right now, I'm not going to spend a lot of time on it, but I do want to show you southern Cuba. We could still see wind gusts as this storm approaches overnight, climbing over 80 miles per hour and near the eye wall. We may still have wind gusts approaching 130 miles per hour at about 1 to 2 in the morning. And then as the storm comes inland at about 4 or 5 in the morning, wind gusts will approach 100 to 105 miles per hour in the Santiago area. In the mountains here, the model doesn't pick up on those, but we could have wind gusts over 140 miles per hour. It could still cause a lot of destruction on top of the flooding that they're going to see. Guantanamo could see wind gusts close to hurricane force, and we could also see stronger winds in the northern portion of eastern Cuba. As the storm gets bigger, you're going to see more folks get stronger winds here as this moves through Wednesday afternoon. In fact, all the way back into the central Bahamas, winds could get close to hurricane force if this is correct. And then the wind field continues to grow, and we have a storm that doesn't look as powerful, but it is a lot bigger than what it is today. Right now, this particular model run does show wind gusts over 60 miles per hour in Hamilton, Bermuda at about 3 in the morning on Friday, climbing to about 88 miles per hour at about 6 in the morning, and then back to 63 by the time we get to 9 in the morning. This is one of our tropical models, which has a storm about 150 miles away. If it comes closer again, those numbers are expected to go up, maybe as high as 130 miles per hour. But if it inches farther away, that obviously would be a lot better for us here. Taking a look at, again, the European model here, just to give you an idea of the track of our storm. We do have strong winds battering coastal North Carolina. Unfortunately, we've lost a few more homes to the Atlantic Ocean on the Outer Banks. But just giving you an idea of the track, you can see the size just getting bigger and bigger and bigger, but no impacts to the East Coast from Melissa. That is all from coastal lows, and we're going to have a couple of them. We get another storm, by the way, next week on the East Coast towards the end of the week and weekend, but it will not be tropical and will not be a path map for me. I can't speak for others, of course. Looking farther up the East Coast, you see the strong area of winds from the Outer Banks stretching into the waters north of Bermuda. This is now. As we get to the nighttime hours, those winds do relax some, and then we start to see increasing wind as we get to Thursday off the East Coast from the next approaching storm, but that's cutting up over the Appalachians and not cutting up the East Coast at this point. You can see the wind field over Bermuda here increasing, and that moves through early in the day on Friday. We could see some of these winds picking up around Newfoundland. I do think Nova Scotia avoids them, but Friday could be awfully windy across parts of the coastal Northeast with wind gusts in excess of 60 miles per hour possible over some of those coastal waters. But those winds will be pushing offshore and not onshore at that time. So we're going to see more wind on the East Coast from storms that come up rather than from Melissa. But we are certainly going to see some wind for sure. And then the worst wind for Avalon Peninsula, Newfoundland, looks like it's going to be very early in the day on Saturday. By the way, the Canadian model still has this coming a lot farther to the west, but we are starting to see a trend a little bit farther east with each run. So I expect that this will continue to shift east with each run. The Canadian right now, though, does indicate a period of some strong winds early in the day on Saturday. Beyond this, we do need to keep an eye on the Western Caribbean. We're going to have a front kind of stalled down in here. No imminent threat of anything tropical, but more rain coming. Central America, Cayman Islands, Cuba, maybe Jamaica and Haiti. It does look like, though, whatever does form down in here towards the beginning of next week is eventually going to get shifted west. At least that's the hope. That could actually get drawn up into Florida, by the way. We could have more rain in Florida. I don't think we're going to have a tropical system. And I'm trying to get my controls out of the way. I just trying to move something at the bottom of the screen. Here we go. Y'all can't see it, but I can for sure. But it looks like a lot of rain for the Northwestern Caribbean and Central America down. Unfortunately, it looks like that is going to push west of Jamaica and Cuba, but it could be a close call at this point. And just something to keep an eye on right now. We're not forecasting a tropical area of development just yet, but we do need to watch that area even in November We saw a storm down there that time last year. It actually ended up being a Category 3 hurricane that hit western Cuba. Right now, there's no imminent threat of something like that happening. And the Gulf looks like it's protected by this big high that'll be coming down right before Veterans Day. In fact, we start to see much colder weather coming down through the Great Lakes into the Northeast. If this particular model run is correct, we could be talking about snow here in about 2 weeks. More to come on that, but yes, we are in a season of transition here. I think many of us are in life as well. But I do want to wrap this video up here with a word of God. I want to encourage those of you that have been through so much, especially those of you dealing with the storm right now. It's, you know, I talked to an important person in my life today about it, and I don't think I'm all right either. I mean, you know, it's exciting to talk about the weather, but you look at I haven't been doom scrolling all day, and it's probably a good thing, but I just can't imagine how bad things are right now for the folks that are going through this storm. And I'm a believer in Christ, and Christ gives me power and hope that otherwise I would never be able to have, especially with all this news that we're getting today. But I just go back to the Bible every day and read a little bit more, and it just lifts me up. And I hope that it lifts you up as well. Paul tells the church of Thessalonians, rejoice always, pray continually, give thanks in all circumstances. For this is God's will for you in Christ Jesus. That is 1 Thessalonians 5:16-18. Praying continually is what we all need to be doing, whether we're in a storm or we're not in a storm, rejoicing always, no matter what is going on in our lives today. But giving God credit and glory is going to lead to tremendous, tremendous blessings. And following Jesus Christ is going to lead to the greatest gift of all, and that is the gift of eternal life through salvation by repenting, turning to God, and believing in Him. It's a difficult time, and not just because of Hurricane Melissa, but certainly that doesn't help. But there are people that need to be encouraged, and I really hope that this message resonated with at least somebody watching here this evening. I'm in prayer for everyone in Jamaica and elsewhere in the Caribbean. You know, I've seen hurricanes and what they've done to communities worldwide, not just in the Caribbean, not just in the U.S., but other places. God is no respecter of persons. These things will come again and again. They will hit different areas of the world. Some places will get them more than once, but God is still good. And I hope that that's the message that you take away from this video today. I appreciate you joining me. More to come back at our regular time tomorrow evening. As always, doesn't cost you a thing to subscribe. If you haven't yet, I would encourage you to do so. That helps me get the word out to more folks. Thank you all so much. Have a great evening.